A lifeless figure lay concealed in the shadows, bearing the harrowing signs of unspeakable violence, brutally mutilated by two perpetrators. The victim's face was a grim testament to the savage ordeal she had suffered. Bloodstains told a disturbing tale of sexual assault. Each piece of evidence soaked in chilling horror. Scattered fragments of clothing whispered of a harrowing tragedy. As investigators peeled back the layers, they uncovered not only a crime, but a grisly narrative of cold-blooded murder. Those tasked with unraveling the case were left stunned, their shock echoing the inhumanity of the acts committed. The horror of that night lingered, casting a dark shadow over all who came into contact with it. This was no ordinary murder. It was a nightmare exposing the deepest depths of human cruelty. Amber Gibson entered the world in South Lanarkshire, Scotland, born to Peter and Anne-Marie Gibson in a family marked by struggle. Her older brother Connor was part of this fractured family unit. From their earliest days, hardship and deprivation defined their existence. Residing in a disadvantaged neighborhood, they faced poverty and scarce opportunities. Peter, the father, seemed to thrive amid this marginalization, while the rest of the family bore the suffering. He refused steady employment, choosing instead to drown himself in alcohol as his family survived on meager government aid. That assistance barely covered basic needs, leaving the family perpetually on the brink of desperation. Within the Gibson household, peace was a stranger. Peter's neglect was matched only by his cruelty. He ruled with an iron fist, creating a home steeped in fear and tension. While Amber escaped the worst, Connor endured relentless physical and emotional abuse. Anne-Marie, their mother, suffered terribly as well. Peter regularly inflicted beatings on her, often in full view of the children, showing no hint of remorse. The violence was unending, and Anne-Marie felt powerless to shield herself or her children. Despite the abuse, she hesitated to seek help, gripped by fear of Peter's wrath. Eventually driven to her limits, Anne-Marie reached out to the police. The investigation revealed Peter's true sinister nature. He showed no remorse and continued to threaten his wife, sealing the case against him. His violent past surfaced, exposing a disturbing pattern of cruelty extending beyond his own family. Among his darkest acts was a brutal assault on a young boy whom he beat severely, leaving lasting injuries. When pressed for an explanation, Peter offered only his inability to control his rage. His crimes extended further still. Evidence emerged of a horrifying rape where he attacked a woman, binding and attempting to strangle her. The victim later revealed she had resigned herself to death before, inexplicably, Peter abruptly ceased the assault. These acts, spanning from 2001 to 2008, painted a chilling portrait of a man stripped of empathy and control. In 2008, Peter was sentenced to 10 years behind bars for a litany of offenses from domestic violence to sexual assault. His imprisonment offered a fleeting hope that the Gibson family might finally find respite. Connor, 5 at the time, and Amber, just 4, were freed from their father's reign of terror. Yet this fragile peace would not last. Anne-Marie, overwhelmed by years of abuse and single parenthood, turned to alcohol. Her descent into addiction rendered her incapable of caring for her children. Neglect replaced the physical abuse, forcing Child Protective Services to step in. Connor and Amber were removed from their mother's custody and placed with foster parents, Craig and Carol Neen. The Neens, a compassionate couple longing for children, had been unable to conceive. They embraced fostering as a chance to provide a stable, loving home to children in need. When Connor and Amber arrived, Craig and Carol welcomed them with open arms, determined to offer the care they had been denied. However, not everyone approved of the Neens' guardianship. The children's biological grandparents challenged the arrangement, accusing the Neens of exploiting government subsidies. Despite these allegations, the court sided with Craig and Carol, granting them custody. Connor and Amber relocated to Hamilton, Scotland, beginning anew. This move marked the start of a long journey toward healing for the siblings. Years of violence and neglect left deep emotional wounds, especially for Connor, who bore the brunt of their father's abuse. He wrestled with trust issues, often retreating from adults and peers alike. Amber, though spared the worst physical harm, carried her own weight of anxiety and insecurity. Craig and Carol dedicated themselves to creating a safe environment, aware of the trauma the children endured. They sought professional therapy for Connor and Amber, encouraging them to confront their pain and express their emotions. The Neens also worked to restore a sense of normalcy, helping Amber discover painting as a way to process her feelings. These small, ordinary moments became transformative reminders that they were valued and loved. Amber found solace in painting her art, a refuge that expressed her emotions and reminded her she was loved. Yet the path forward was far from smooth and filled with unexpected setbacks. Connor at times succumbed to waves of anger and suspicion. Meanwhile, Amber wrestled with guilt over leaving her biological mother behind. Through it all, the Neens showed unwavering patience and empathy, guiding the children gently through their darkest moments. As adolescence approached, both Amber and Connor began to nurture fragile hopes for a future bathed in light. Amber envisioned a life as an artist, her sketches and paintings quietly bearing the mark of the resilience she had forged. To all who knew her, Amber was a sweet, gentle soul, seemingly untouched by the brutality that had marred her early years. Her vibrant energy and cheerful spirit illuminated those around her, anchored by an unyielding strength that helped her rise above trauma. Despite the cruelty she endured, Amber's love for life remained unbroken, shining through every challenge. Her intelligence and maturity far exceeded her years, filling her foster family with pride and hope. Art and singing became Amber's sanctuaries, creative outlets where she found both joy and healing in her new home. Connor's path, however, took a much darker turn. The violence he endured left deep, lasting scars that would shape his troubled adolescence. Connor's behavioral issues, fueled by his father's abuse, marked him as troubled, his anger and morbid humor isolating him from peers. Most dismissed his troubling behavior as mere eccentricity, failing to see it as a desperate cry for help. Beneath the surface, Connor battled profound mental health struggles that went largely unnoticed. Social media became his outlet, where cryptic posts hinted at the chaos consuming him from within. One revealing post during his school years exposed his battles with bulimia, depression, anxiety, and attention deficit disorder. These raw admissions offered a rare glimpse into a fractured psyche crying out in silence. Yet tragically, they failed to spark the intervention Connor desperately needed. Teachers harbored suspicions about his mental state, but no formal evaluations or diagnoses were pursued, leaving Connor to face his demons alone. His academic life bore the weight of his struggles. Disinterested and disengaged, he skipped classes and underperformed, sinking further into isolation. Unable to connect with others, Connor's loneliness deepened. He frequently blamed his father for the turmoil in his life. In Connor's eyes, his father's tyrannical grip had sown chaos in his mind and existence, trapping him within a dark shadow he could not escape. Despite craving acceptance, every attempt to socialize was thwarted by his erratic behavior and unsettling presence. Foster parents. Craig and Carol Neen recognized the growing tension, striving early on to keep the children apart. Connor's aggression toward Amber was clear, and the Neens feared leaving them alone together. Their interactions remained under strict supervision, yet even with watchful eyes, Connor found ways to torment Amber, latching onto any slight to unleash his frustration. As they matured, the rift between them only widened. To shield Amber, the Neens enrolled the siblings in separate schools. Amber thrived in a regular school setting, her kindness and talents shining through. Connor, however, was sent to specialized institutions for youths grappling with emotional and behavioral challenges. While Amber found a measure of peace, Connor's struggles persisted and deepened. His failure to form romantic connections fueled a mounting anger. Repeated rejection, especially by girls, fed his resentment, often directed at his sister. A lack of proper intervention during these critical years played a pivotal role in Connor's downward spiral. Teachers, peers, and even his foster parents underestimated the severity of his issues. Though specialized education offered some support without addressing his mental health comprehensively, Connor's problems only worsened. Society's tendency to write off troubled youth as lost causes left Connor isolated, convinced he was beyond help. The Neens faced the daunting challenge of raising two deeply scarred children with vastly different needs. Their efforts to protect Amber while aiding Connor revealed the complex realities of fostering traumatized youth. Tensions between Connor and Amber reached a breaking point in their teenage years. Amber's fear of her brother grew vocal and urgent, pleading never to share a home with him again. Connor's aggression turned relentless, his relentless targeting of Amber creating a toxic, unbearable atmosphere. Recognizing the danger, the Neens took decisive steps to separate the siblings, further ensuring Amber's safety. Amber's determination led to her placement in an orphanage away from Connor's wrath. Connor remained with the Neens until he reached adulthood in 2020. At 18, Connor chose to leave the foster home. Seeking independence, he joined a Hamilton initiative called Blue Triangle, a project offering temporary housing to those without stable shelter. This move marked the beginning of Connor's life in a setting akin to a homeless shelter, though apart. Amber and Connor kept occasional contact, their conversations always charged with tension. Their fractured bond persisted, shadowed by years of pain and unresolved conflict. In the quiet spaces between their exchanges, the scars of their shared past remained painfully evident. The tense relationship between the siblings had been marked by frequent clashes in the past, yet the growing physical distance between them brought a slight, fragile calm. This reduced proximity lessened their chances to collide, but it offered little protection to Amber, as more tragedies loomed on her horizon. In June 2021, Amber was plunged into a nightmare. She was viciously attacked and raped by Jamie Starr, a 20-year-old with a violent past. Starr had previously served time for sexual assault, and despite multiple charges was inexplicably released on bail. Tragically, while still out on bail, he struck Amber again. For this second attack, he received a 10-year prison sentence. The trauma left Amber shattered. Her road to recovery was agonizingly slow, despite the support offered by family and friends. Yet Connor remained coldly detached, showing little concern for his sister's agony. Driven by desperation, Amber sought to mend the fractured bond with Connor. On November 26, 2021, she confided in a friend, revealing her plan to meet him. Amber held on to hope, believing this encounter might mark a turning point in their strained relationship. She wished for the sibling rivalry and past conflicts to dissolve, opening the door to reconnection. At this time, Amber still lived at the orphanage Connor arranged with its administration to allow the meeting. Permission was granted for Amber to leave for the evening, with the understanding she would return later that night. Before leaving, Amber shared a smiling selfie with Connor on social media, her happiness genuine. That photo would become the last image anyone saw of her alive. Around midnight, Connor returned to his hostel. His disheveled state, dirty hands, and erratic behavior immediately set off alarm bells among the staff. When pressed, he claimed the meeting ended in an argument, and he had left abruptly. Despite this, he now expressed concern, wanting to confirm Amber's safe return. Connor called the orphanage only to be told Amber had not come back. Panic gripped the orphanage staff, who quickly contacted the foster parents. They, too, had no clue about Amber's whereabouts. Connor recounted that their meeting began at the foster parents' home before they walked to Cadog Glen Park to discuss personal matters. He said they parted ways there, with him returning to the hostel, but Amber never came back. When the orphanage filed a missing persons report, police noted Amber had left all her belongings behind, an unlikely sign of someone planning to run away. With no romantic partner in her life, theories of escape crumbled. Investigators grew increasingly convinced that something far darker had unfolded. Suspicion quickly turned toward Connor. While everyone else was frantic, Connor's unsettling indifference stood out starkly. He failed to reach out to foster parents or offer any help in the search. His passivity clashed violently with the urgency surrounding Amber's disappearance. He remained isolated in the hostel, waiting silently, refusing to aid the desperate search for his sister. Meanwhile, police intensified their efforts, desperate for any lead to unravel the mystery of Amber's vanishing. All eyes turned to the last person known to have seen her alive: Connor. Under questioning, Connor admitted he and Amber had walked together that evening. He told investigators their meeting ended in yet another heated argument. Connor claimed he left Amber in tears at the park after their quarrel. He said he wandered aimlessly on the outskirts of town before eventually returning to the hostel. But his story immediately raised alarms. Connor insisted he got lost, despite knowing the area well, making his claim hard to believe. He added that he had fallen into a ditch in the dark, explaining his disheveled and dirty state upon return. Later that night, investigators found cracks in his narrative. When asked to locate the ditch, Connor stumbled, unable to remember. Yet he easily pinpointed where he met Amber and where he left her in the park. This selective amnesia deepened suspicions. Repeated attempts to extract more details met with resistance. When pressed about witnesses or others present, Connor dodged questions, visibly nervous and evasive. His behavior failed to convince investigators, but without solid proof, they were forced to release him. Meanwhile, the search for Amber escalated with mounting urgency. 2 days after her disappearance, on the morning of November 28th, police received a chilling call from Stephen Corgan, a 45-year-old man. Stephen claimed to have found a body in Cadog Glen Park during a morning walk. What he revealed next sent shockwaves through the investigation. Stephen confessed he had not called for help immediately. Instead, he admitted to sexually assaulting the corpse before finally alerting authorities. Overcome with guilt, he later decided to turn himself in. Investigators arrived to find the body about 200 meters from the bridge where Amber was last seen. The scene was horrific. Amber's battered naked body was discovered a victim of brutal sexual assault. Forensic analysis later confirmed Stephen's DNA was found on the body, including in intimate areas. Stephen admitted he dragged Amber's body off the trail to avoid detection, committed his vile act, and then covered her with branches. The location he described matched exactly where detectives uncovered Amber's lifeless form. At first, suspicion fell squarely on Stephen, as the prime suspect blamed not only for the post-mortem assault, but also for Amber's murder. Yet forensic evidence soon unraveled this initial assumption, complicating the case. The medical examiner's grim findings revealed 8 distinct bruises encircling Amber's neck, unmistakable signs of manual strangulation. A hematoma deep within her brain confirmed the violent pressure had been sustained over time. Coupled with a battered face and a broken nose, the evidence painted a chilling portrait of the savage beating she endured. The brutality of the attack suggested a deeply personal and vicious motive. Forensic experts concluded Amber had first been viciously beaten. A blow to the head left her unconscious, but strangulation was ultimately the fatal cause. Near her body, investigators found Amber's torn clothes and underwear ripped apart in a frenzied assault. Her body was heavily smeared with dirt, bearing clear evidence that she had been dragged across the ground. Forensic analysis then delivered a shocking twist. Amber had died 2 full days before Stephen Corgan reported discovering her body. At that time, Stephen possessed an airtight alibi, effectively clearing him as the murderer. This revelation shifted the spotlight back onto Amber's brother Connor. A particularly damning detail surfaced. Connor had posted a social media message mourning Amber's death hours before her body was officially found. How could he have known she was dead when she was still officially listed as missing? As public interest surged, Connor contacted a local newspaper offering an interview about his sister. He portrayed Amber as a kind and loving soul, one who had endured many hardships. A meeting was arranged for December 2nd at a modest cafe where the journalist hoped to share Amber's story with the community. But Connor never appeared. By then he was already in police custody, arrested on suspicion of murdering Amber. Detectives intensified their investigation into Connor, determined to find irrefutable proof linking him to the crime. Surveillance footage soon became crucial in reconstructing Amber's final hours. Cameras captured Amber and Connor walking through the city, crossing a bridge near the park together. At 9:51 p.m., Amber posted a selfie with Connor on social media. She appeared happy, suggesting a facade of harmony between the siblings. Yet roughly 90 minutes later, Connor was seen alone on another set of cameras near his dormitory. His suspicious behavior deepened the mystery. Before entering the building, he discarded part of his clothing into a trash container. This seemingly small act proved pivotal when police recovered the jacket he had worn that night from the dumpster. Unlike his other clothes, which he had kept and attempted to clean, this jacket was abandoned. It bore traces of dirt and blood, forensic analysis confirming both belonged to Amber. Further inspection of his shoes revealed more of Amber's blood and DNA. Investigators speculated Connor hadn't discarded all his clothing out of financial necessity. He had cleaned most items, but not thoroughly enough to erase every trace. This critical oversight allowed detectives to recover incriminating DNA tying him directly to Amber. Even more damning, blood found on Amber's torn underwear did not belong to her. DNA testing identified the blood as Connor's. It was believed he had injured himself during the violent struggle, leaving his blood behind. Disturbingly, bodily fluids on Amber's body confirmed a sexual assault had taken place, implicating Connor beyond doubt. These findings eliminated any question of his involvement. Attention then turned to Connor's mobile phone. His digital footprints revealed further evidence of guilt and attempts to manipulate the narrative. The day after the murder, Connor messaged a group chat with 5 others pleading for help in finding Amber. Yet less than a minute later, he sent a separate message directly to Amber asking if she was okay. These conflicting messages suggested a calculated effort to construct a false story. Shortly after he dismissed his initial plea as a bad joke in the group chat, Connor's post-murder behavior revealed a chilling absence of remorse. His feigned concern and social media mourning were strategic moves to deflect suspicion, yet his failure to erase all evidence combined with suspicious online activity ultimately sealed his fate. Later that same day, Connor conducted several unsettling Google searches, seeking ways to avoid phone tracking and police data collection. These searches exposed his growing fear of capture and his desperate attempts to cover his tracks. A deeper investigation into Connor's phone uncovered a grim truth about his relationship with Amber. Messages from Amber's conversations revealed a history of prior abuse. Connor had assaulted Amber before threatening horrific retaliation if she disclosed his actions to their adoptive parents or the police. These threats appeared to be the driving force behind Amber's desperate wish to leave her foster home at just 14. Whether out of fear or a complicated loyalty, Amber chose to remain silent about the abuse. Shortly before her death, evidence suggests Amber made a fateful decision to confide in her foster parents. This choice may have set in motion the tragic chain of events leading to her murder. The investigation painstakingly reconstructed that dreadful night, revealing every detail with chilling clarity. Surveillance footage captured Amber walking alongside Connor, both seemingly calm, as if attempting to repair their fractured bond. No immediate signs of conflict appeared on camera, but the atmosphere shifted the moment they entered the park. A violent confrontation erupted, whether sparked on impulse or meticulously planned by Connor. Investigators could not dismiss the possibility that Connor had orchestrated the meeting, deliberately leading Amber to a secluded spot to carry out his sinister plan. Whatever the motive, the argument escalated rapidly, culminating in Connor's savage assault. Amber suffered brutal beatings, rendered unconscious by a powerful blow to the head. But forensic evidence confirmed the lethal cause: manual strangulation. Connor choked his sister into unconsciousness before committing a horrifying sexual assault. He abandoned Amber's lifeless body in the park, dragging it a short distance and leaving it partially hidden along a footpath. The lack of an effort to fully conceal the body hinted at either Connor's recklessness or a chilling belief that he would evade detection. Following his arrest, Connor's adoptive parents spoke out, grappling with shock and bitter disappointment. They revealed a troubled history. Connor had long struggled to fit in and forge relationships. His disturbing fascination with dark and violent themes had concerned them. Yet nothing prepared them for the depths of his cruelty toward Amber. They admitted that Connor showed little affection for his sister, their relationship marred by tension and hostility. The community recoiled not only at the savage nature of the murder, but also at the grim circumstances enveloping it. Amber had suffered violence at the hands of two predators, her brother Connor and later Stephen Corgan, who committed unspeakable acts upon her lifeless body. The horrifying fact that two such monsters crossed paths with Amber in such a brief span sent shockwaves through the public. The community mourned deeply, struggling to grasp how these horrors could unfold unchecked. Connor's cold behavior after Amber's disappearance stoked public fury even further. Unlike the desperate community and their foster parents, Connor showed no concern or involvement in the search. He deliberately avoided contact with his foster parents, making no effort to aid in finding Amber. His social media post, mourning Amber's death, appeared hollow, even calculated, posted mere hours before her body was officially discovered. This cold indifference painted a grim portrait of a young man devoid of empathy. The mountain of evidence against Connor left his defense lawyer with an uphill battle. The defense claimed no footage showed Connor attacking Amber, suggesting he was not responsible despite walking with her that night. But this fragile argument crumbled under forensic scrutiny. Connor's DNA was found on Amber's underwear and body, while the blood staining his clothes matched hers. These facts stood irrefutable, rendering the defense's claims weak and unconvincing. Moreover, Connor's post-crime conduct further eroded his defense. His internet searches on evading detection revealed chilling premeditation and a guilty conscience. His dismissive attitude toward Amber's search painted him as not only guilty but deeply unrepentant. Amber's silence about earlier assaults by Connor spoke volumes about the tangled web of fear, love, and shame that traps many abuse survivors. By the time she found the courage to confront her brother, it was tragically too late. But the nightmare did not end there. The disturbing man who discovered Amber's body would soon emerge. After the arrest of 45-year-old Stephen Corgan, the case took a darker, unsettling turn. Stephen confessed to sexually assaulting Amber's lifeless body after finding her abandoned on the park path. During his trial, he struggled to explain the monstrous impulse that drove him to such an act. In his own chilling admission, Stephen claimed he could not resist the urge when confronted with the murdered girl. His confession stunned the court and complicated the prosecution's case, demanding careful consideration of the charges. DNA evidence placed Stephen on Amber's body in 39 separate locations, casting a long shadow over the murder investigation and delaying justice. Stephen's defense leaned heavily on his 79-year-old father, William Corgan, who vehemently denied any wrongdoing by his son. William painted Stephen as a decent man, unable to fathom the accusations of necrophilia. He testified that Stephen had been home shortly before the incident, calm and showing no signs of aggression. William also cited a recent hand injury Stephen sustained, arguing it would have made committing the acts physically impossible. Despite this, William could not explain the overwhelming forensic evidence against his son. Stephen's DNA was found in intimate areas of the victim's body, a damning fact. The elder Corgan's testimony failed to sway the jury. Adding to the prosecution's case, Stephen's ex-wife took the stand, delivering a starkly different picture. She described Stephen as a violent and dangerous man, recounting years of physical abuse during their marriage. She testified to living in constant fear of him. While horrified by the crime she confessed, she was not surprised by Stephen's involvement. Her testimony exposed a disturbing portrait of a man driven by violence and impulsive rage, strengthening the prosecution's case. In a desperate attempt to rewrite the narrative, Stephen's lawyer claimed he had only moved Amber's body to shield bystanders from the horror of the scene. The defense further argued that Stephen's chilling confession of necrophilia was nothing more than a cruel, ill-conceived joke. Yet this fragile claim quickly unraveled under the weight of evidence. Forensic analysis revealed Stephen's DNA in locations impossible to explain by mere repositioning of the body. Male bodily fluids recovered from Amber provided undeniable proof of a brutal sexual assault. The jury was left to confront Stephen's cold detachment alongside his twisted justification. The community recoiled in horror at Stephen's actions, yet the darkest betrayal lay closer to home, committed by Amber's own brother, Connor Gibson. From the start, Amber and Connor endured a childhood scarred by neglect and abuse. Their father's violent outbursts and their mother's cold indifference left deep emotional wounds on both siblings. Rather than uniting them, their shared trauma bred hostility between Connor and Amber. Connor's escalating aggression forced their separation into foster care, fracturing their already fragile bond. Despite warnings from friends to keep her distance, Amber clung to hope and believed in second chances with her brother. On that fateful night, she agreed to meet Connor, determined to mend their broken relationship. Tragically, her trust would be her undoing. Connor lured her to a quiet park under the guise of reconciliation, only for it to become the scene of unspeakable violence. Throughout the trial, Connor remained eerily emotionless, detached from the horror he had unleashed. His chilling lack of remorse raised serious questions about his mental state. Expert testimony painted a picture of a young man burdened by severe psychological disorders, worsened by years of abuse. Being the elder sibling, Connor bore vivid memories of their father's cruelty, which may have fueled his violent tendencies. His defense lawyers argued that Connor had long struggled with his mental health and sought help. His social media revealed a tortured soul openly expressing pain and a desperate cry for support. Yet those cries for help were tragically ignored. Connor's attorney pointed fingers at systemic failures, insisting society's neglect played a role in his downfall. The public was stunned and heartbroken, grappling with the grim truth that Amber was victimized twice, first by her own brother, then by Stephen Corgan. The case ignited widespread media coverage and intense public debate over such horrors. Amber's biological grandparents publicly condemned the foster care system and the foster parents responsible for Connor and Amber. They alleged that once financial support arrived, the foster parents showed little genuine care for the children's welfare. Concerns grew that the foster parents' indifference endangered not only Amber and Connor but all children in their care. This was no isolated case. Amber and Connor were reportedly among several foster children living in the household. The foster parents vehemently rejected these accusations. They insisted they had always acted in the best interests of children coming from traumatic backgrounds. Acknowledging the challenges of fostering, they cited Connor's severe behavioral problems as particularly difficult to manage. They explained that Amber's placement in an orphanage was a protective measure, not neglect. The foster parents claimed they were unaware of Connor's violent tendencies until much later, and separated the siblings to shield Amber. When Connor turned 18, he chose to leave their home and enter a homeless shelter. The foster parents maintained that this decision was entirely Connor's, beyond their control. Despite losing him, they tried to keep a semblance of family by encouraging contact between the siblings. For a brief time, Amber and Connor attempted to repair their fractured bond, but no one could foresee the tragic fate awaiting them. Though criticized, the foster parents defended their actions, admitting they were unprepared to handle such complex family dynamics. But the evidence against Connor Gibson was overwhelming. After a 13-day trial, the jury retired to deliberate the fate of the accused. They returned with a unanimous verdict, finding Connor guilty of murdering and assaulting his 17-year-old sister. Sentenced to life imprisonment, Connor was granted the possibility to apply for parole after 22 years behind bars. Stephen Corgan was also convicted of sexual abuse of a corpse, receiving a 9-year prison sentence.